Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So today we'll talk about how to be a responsible university with people who actually implemented solutions to fight the war on waste. So this webinar will start with an introduction of responsible cafes, and will come with a study on the work we did with the University of Adelaide, and will be followed by a panel discussion with Christine McCallum, Principal Program Officer in the Sustainability Department at the University of Queensland, and Nicole, Head of Sustainability at Macquarie University, and Marion Vigo, General Manager as Responsible Cafes. As for me, I'm Manon Laya, Program Coordinator for Responsible Cafes. Just also to let you know that we'll have a question and answer at the end. So if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will answer afterwards. And also letting you know that this webinar will be recorded. Marion, you can pass in the next slide. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land. I'm based in Melbourne, and we're with the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Next slide. Responsible Cafes is Australia's most innovative, popular, and fastest growing program, actively engaging 5,000 cafes and a community of customers, councils, and universities all nationwide. So Responsible Cafes was established as a not-for-profit community group in 2013 by Responsible Action Networks. This group ran firstly binge cleanups and noticed there was an increase in hospitality waste. So they decided to treat the problem from the source and created a program that targeted the hospitality and the cafe community and trying to work with them to change their habits and implement alternative solutions. In 2017, Responsible Cafes was featured in ABC's documentary War on Waste, and from there we received thousands of messages from cafes, customers, councils, schools, all together, and all of them asking what they could do to minimize their impacts. And minimizing impact is actually what's been driving Responsible Cafes all throughout these years with its volunteers. And as part of the new team who took over in 2021, we are very proud to be pursuing this amazing work. So you can pass on the next one. Now, a few facts and figures. According to Sustainability Victoria in 2022, Australians throw out an average 2.7 million single-use coffee cups every day, which adds up to 1.8 billion cups and lids per year. It goes without saying that with the pandemic and multiple lockdowns, the increase of the takeaway culture has massively contributed to increase this number. The challenge is coffee cups contain a plastic lining that makes them very challenging to recycle, and 90% of them will be either littered or landfilled. We have alternative solutions that exist, but we've noticed that cafes struggle to get the right information and to navigate through the greenwashing. On the other side, we also have, like I said, cafes who really try to do the right thing, but often they miss access to the right information and sometimes simply just time to set up a strategy to bring reusables on board. And we also need to add to that, obviously, the upcoming plastic bans that are going to be a supplementary challenge for them. Responsible Cafe has been thriving on supporting cafes to reduce the waste, focusing firstly on single-use coffee cups and lids. We created resources and shared tips and solutions that cafes can implement according to the new plastic ban regulations. We also give them visibility on a searchable map where customers can look for the Responsible Cafe in their areas. And we also help cafes to spread the word about the great actions they're doing via our social media. Can pass on the next slide. A study conducted by us in 2019 showed that a Responsible Cafe saves around 35 single-use coffee cups per day, first not far from 13,000 cups per year. Altogether, it means our network of 5,000 cafes managed to save up to 65 million of cups per year, thanks to all the efforts. Over the coming years, we're hoping to grow this community of cafes and extend our impact by having more food businesses and customers adopting new consumption habits based on reusing rather than disposing. We are also incredibly lucky to be supported by this amazing network of ambassadors, such as Laura Wells or Jack Johnson, but also community partners and councils across Australia who worked with us and helped us to extend our reach and get more cafes on board. Next slide, please. Our 2022 campaigns have been focused on expanding our focus beyond coffee cups and meats and to include more single-use items, such as the food packaging, for example, or the plastic straw. Most of these campaigns aim to highlight the cafe's incredible efforts and also raise awareness among the customers about the good practices to develop. For instance, Bring Your Own Friday was one in the wake of Bring Your Own Cup Week in Bondi that was organized last December and invited participating cafes to serve coffees in reusable cups only. So now every Friday, we remind cafes and kin beans to prioritize reusables over single use. The Digital Cup campaign that we currently run with the Council of Waverley will reignite the Bring Your Own Cup Week this year between the 1st and the 10th of December this year. So if any one of you is based in Bondi, I strongly encourage you to go and visit your cafes over there. I will now hand it over to Marion, who will talk more in detail about the Responsible Cafes work at the University of Adelaide.
Marion, you're on mute.
Oops, sorry. I'll start again. So hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. As part of this second section of the presentation, I'm going to go through what we've done with the University of Adelaide. Obviously, Responsible Cafe is convinced that students are the perfect audience to learn about sustainability and expand the work we do into a more circular future. In 2022, we've noticed that a lot of interest was coming from the education space. So we decided to adapt the version of the program we currently run with over 60 councils to be effective on campus for universities. So taking the case study of the University of Adelaide, we started implementing the campaign of Responsible Cafe just over a couple of months ago, back in June. And the way we like to introduce our programs and campaigns in university campus always starts with a strategy session. It allows us to better define the objectives of the university towards sustainable practice. And in the case of the University of Adelaide, they had three main objectives. The first one was to encourage and reward cafes doing great things on campus. The second one was to track and collect data around single-use plastic and sustainability action. And the fourth one was to inspire business owners and lift them up, especially after the very hard time they've had during the pandemic. This is still a work in progress. During that strategy session, what we like to do as well is to identify a group of students on campus. So it can either be a student association or a sustainability student union. At the University of Adelaide, we worked with the Ecoversity part of the university, which is the sustainability network of the university, in order to spread the campaign on campus. Then what we like to do to introduce the campaign more broadly on campus is we develop co-branded resources and posters in order to be very visible on campus. So you can see a couple of examples on the screen of those resources that we develop. We've also give the University of Adelaide access to all the other resources that we have created over the years. So those resources can be used in the university's communication plan, as well as ready to post social media tiles, many different types of design, press release, and so more. What we also implement every time, so one big, actually the biggest the biggest focus of the program that we do on campus is around the activation campaign. It's the most engaging part of the program. And that activation campaign is usually very well tied up with the strategy that the university wants to implement on campus. So here, the University of Adelaide, they wanted to have all their cafes accredited as responsible cafes, which means that each of their cafes got onboarded. So each of their cafes got onboarded on our platform. So we did an initial waste audit with them and data collections through the platform of Responsible Cafe. They gave us all the sustainability actions they were already performing. Each cafe got given a rating on the platform. They then got visibility on our online map, and they got access to also lots of printed resource and posters that the students that we've been working with have been handing over to the cafes. What happens during that activation campaign and that engagement part of the program is, so not only we go out and give out resources to those cafes, we also help them implement those reusable action and steps. For example, how to introduce a mug library, how to implement a cup swap systems. And we work with amazing partners in that space in order to allow university hospitality businesses to jump on board with reusable initiatives. So we also introduce alternative product to single-use plastic packaging when it's required. And we do that taking into consideration all the initiative already implemented on campus. So for example, if the university already has access to a green bin system that accepts compostable packaging, we would look at that in order to offer alternative solutions that match with that. If those alternatives cannot be accepted as part of the green bin, which is now the case in New South Wales, and we'll have a chat about that a little bit later, then we go towards other initiatives. So we really take into consideration all of that in order to make sure that every actions implemented follows a true circular pathway. Another thing that we like to implement on campus, and it's what we are doing currently with the University of Adelaide, is we talk to business owners about the upcoming ban. We explain them exactly what is happening during that ban. We visit them a couple of times during the activation to update the data that we have collected initially and see progress to measure their impact. We collect those data all via our website and platform, where everything is analyzed together in order to measure the result of the campaign. We also like to involve all cafes on campus on our campaigns that we run, on nationwide campaigns. So for example, the Bring It On Friday campaign that Manon talked about, we like to have all those campaigns implemented on campus in order for those movements to be communicated on the campus level and nationwide as well. Basically, what we love to do during our activations is help cafes improve their rating on the platform, and we help them do that through various initiatives that help them divert waste from landfill, as well as ditch single-use plastic, find alternative products, and celebrate their wins. We do also a lot of social media around that, where we feature all those cafes that have a great rating on the platform. I'm going to show you how a rating looks like for a cafe. So I've taken here the example of the Grind and Press Cafe on the campus of the University of Adelaide. So as you can see here, the cafe is rated Gold Bean, so that's the maximum rating that we allow on the platform. You can see that they give a 50-cent discount for customers who bring their own cup. They have a cup library. Obviously, they ditch a lot of single-use plastic already because lots of those items have been banned already by legislation. They provide industrially compostable packaging and foodware. And they also have dedicated bin to collect them. And obviously the council waste system accepts those compostable packaging as part of the green bin. They also have renewable energy on campus, and they offset their operations footprint using offset tool. So all those actions are basically what we assess in terms of data collection. And when we do a waste audit, we update all of those in order to ensure the cafes are improving and get a better rating. At the end of the year, we come back with a report that summarizes all those actions, how many cafes have been on board on the platform, what is their rating, and all the sustainable actions that they are taking on campus. We have actually done a little interview with Maddie from University on the University of Adelaide, and I'm going to play that small video so you can have Maddie's perspective on the program.
I'm Maddie from University at the University of Adelaide, and we aim to develop a culture of sustainability around campus. The Responsible Cafes program has been a great way to promote businesses and cafes on campus that have responsible and sustainable practices. So when introducing this program to the university, I've been engaging with lots of different cafe owners and talking to them about their practices and how they can improve them, and maybe options to make them more sustainable that they might not have been aware of. Some of the cafe owners have been really excited about this because we have a lot of cafe owners who have great practices already, and this has given us an opportunity to promote that. So the Responsible Cafes program at the uni is still quite new, but already we've seen some cafes begin to take steps to think more about their practices and make some improvements to their ratings. So I think that what it's done is plant the seed of conscientiousness in cafe owners, and I hope that with time it will result in more sustainable practices being really widespread across the uni. We have 13 cafes that we've been working with, and so far 6 of them have gold bean ratings, which is the highest rating that you can receive on Responsible Cafes. So that's really exciting that we get to promote these cafes who have practices which are really good for people and the environment. I hope that with time we can get all of the cafes to have those gold bean ratings. Cool. Yeah, cool. I'm Maddie.
Oh, all right. So this was Maddie at the University of Adelaide. Maddie has been the person we've been working with throughout the program, and is the main point of contact for us to have those action and activities on campus. If you have any question regarding the impact and actions that can be achieved throughout having responsible cafes on campus, feel free to pop them in the chat or just unmute yourself. I think we have a couple of minutes to allow for Q&A. Yeah, is there any questions in the audience at all? I guess.
Marianne, sorry. I've just got a question around one of the slides mentioned a dashboard, data on a dashboard. Just wondering what that is, because that sounds quite exciting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the dashboard, so we actually have a dashboard where we collect all the data from all the different cafes, and we are currently developing a version of that dashboard so universities can have access to the data of their cafes in real time. So not only they can see through the progress of the rating on their cafes, they can also have a very clear visibility on how many single-use plastic are diverted from landfill, how many coffee cups are saved from landfill, and all the sustainability actions that I featured as part of the cafe profile earlier. So all the results of that will be available in a real-time dashboard for universities.
How is the data on the number of single-use cups captured in each of the cafes?
So it's actually one of the very first questions that we ask the cafes when they register. So every time a cafe joins, we ask them how many single-use cups do they serve per week, how many reusable cups do they serve per week, what type of cups or what type of containers or food packaging do they serve at the cafe. And all those data are also captured in that dashboard and are data that we report on at the end of the program too. I'm just having a look at the chat. I have a question from Emily. Do the initiatives tend to cost or save cafes money? The answer is definitely yes. We've seen by switching to reusables in general, cafes have been saving money both on packaging cost, but also if they allow for retail in their cafes and sell reusable packaging, or for example, reusable cups or reusable container, we've seen also them having an increase in revenue. We've estimated that that cost is around $1,900 per year in additional revenue. Is there one last question before we move ahead with the panel discussion?
I've just got one more question. If it's going to save cafes money, what is the barrier, generally speaking, do you come across for cafes getting involved?
I would say a lack of knowledge on how to implement those reusable systems is something that we often come across, like jumping that step from going from an all single-use practice to a reusable practice. We always love introducing our mug libraries ideas, for example, because those ideas are completely almost cost-free to implement, and they are a great way to kind of see or drive behavior change on a small scale. So I would say having that better knowledge on how to implement those change is key, and it's something that we've noticed where we are adding more resource in. The other one would probably be legislations, not knowing exactly what is being banned, what are the correct alternative, and seeing all the greenwashing that is in the space of packaging, for example. It's really challenging for cafe owners to navigate the space by themselves without doing lots of research. So we are just trying to simplify all of that for them.
Sorry, I thought I would jump in as well. The other thing also I noticed is the investing cost of obviously buying all of these reusable cups before reselling them. They can be as prohibitive sometimes. What we do at the moment with some consoles is that coming with the membership is a flood of reusable cups for let's say $200, $300, and that we give to cafes when they sign up as a responsible cafe. So that also helps them to join this first day, gain some revenues from reselling the cups first, and so they can have already some money to get going. So it could also be something.
Absolutely, it shows them the added benefit of implementing reusables in order to test and try the system, see how it works for them, and what monetary results it brings them as well. So this has been proven very successful too. All right, we're going to move into the panel discussion. I'm very happy to introduce our panel speakers. Christine, who is from the University of Queensland as a Principal Program Officer in Sustainability, and Nicole, who is the Head of Sustainability at Macquarie University. Welcome to you both. I thought we'd just start with the first question, and it's going to be around food waste. Because in Australia, we waste 7.6 million tons of food every year. That's AusHarvest, data from AusHarvest, and that's approximately over 300 kilo of food waste per person per year, which is huge. So my first question to you is, what initiatives have you implemented on both universities that you are currently working at? And also, I guess I would mention the University of Sydney, where Nicole, you've also been energy and waste manager in the past. I'll start with you, Nicole, maybe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Exciting to be here today to share. I'll start. I was the energy and waste manager at University of Sydney not that long ago, and there we implemented a couple of initiatives there that was based on circular economy. We installed a hot rot, which was a big composter on site to recover all of the organics from campus, well, as much as possible. So we rolled out into cafes and into kitchen areas for staff and student areas, and it was also being rolled out in some of the colleges. And there was another initiative of green caffeine cups that was rolled out. That was to reduce the number of single-use cups that we were going to use on campus, and that was rolling out in cafes, and the cafes were coming on board. It was the cafes thought that it would cost them more money by staffing, with having to wash them and having to handle it. It wasn't until they sort of started to get going with the green caffeine cups that they sort of understood that there was benefit to them. They wouldn't have the packaging cost, and they already ran their dishwashers. And so there were minimum additional costs with them having to manage those cups in addition, so it was more beneficial for them. At Macquarie University, I've only been here for a couple of months. There have been a couple of initiatives that they run. Some of the cafes try to avoid waste by doing a take me home and reducing the cost of food to sell it at the end of the day. So they're to reduce the waste that gets thrown out, which seems to be quite successful. And it's via an app. So students can sort of log on and see what's available and then come over and purchase it. And in the Central Food Court area, they initiated a program to put all compostable packaging and having a recycling stream to compost it. It was mentioned earlier. Spanner was thrown in the works with the New South Wales government and the EPA banning composting of all compostable packaging because of the concern of the PFAS chemicals in the composting material. So even though the packaging passes all the rules for the maximum limitations on PFASs, the composting locations can't. So yeah, that sort of throw a little spanner in the works with compostable, because now we can't have a compostable stream of packaging.
And we're going to come back on that in a minute. What about you, Christine? What initiative have you implemented at the University of Queensland?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me along to talk today, Marion. So with what we've done around food waste at UQ is we've introduced an organics collection stream. So unlike Nicole was talking about where they have the on-site composting, our organics waste is taken away by our waste contractor to a commercial composting facility in Ipswich. And so we don't get the benefit of the end product, but it does allow us to quickly and easily implement an organics collection program, which we did started beginning of 2020, and we now are collecting all the organic waste from the food outlets, that's back of house and front of house. There's organic bins throughout the kitchen. Our organic stream also thankfully allows us to put paper towel waste in it, and also the compostable packaging. And I hope that doesn't change, because UQ generates a lot of paper towel waste, unfortunately. So yeah, we have little organic caddies in all the building kitchens. We have organic bins in the food court areas. And then we have bins for compostable packaging and the paper towel waste in the bathrooms and compostable packaging in the kitchen. So, and yeah, I guess, Nicole, I love the way you mentioned the app where to sell food at the end of the day at reduced cost. That's something we're definitely looking into here. And I know the union has introduced, the UQ union manages about 7 food outlets, 7 cafes on campus. So they're sort of the big stakeholder, and they've introduced an app to try to start doing that. So that's a good area where we can make some impact. Yeah.
It's very interesting that you're talking about the student union, because we definitely see students being leading that space in the near future. Lots of ideas have been coming out from students, and students are the leaders of tomorrow to lead change and to really inspire business owners to do better, or educate them or introduce new concepts of sustainability. I really liked what you said also about the napkins, because we've actually did a post very recently sharing that 26% of foodware waste were actually coming from napkins. Can you believe?
Wow,
that
yes.
Being so small and so light, 26% is actually napkin waste. So we definitely need to do something in that space, that's for sure. I guess I want to ask you, like, where those initiatives came from? Like, how did they got implemented in the first place? What was the push behind them?
Happy for me to start?
Yeah, please.
So there was Sydney University. I'll start with Sydney. Was the green caffeine? It was there's a lot of research being done on circular economy at Sydney University. So it was like, well, how can we avoid the single-use cups? And the students don't, if they bring a keep cup, they don't necessarily want to carry it around. But if they have more than 1 cup of coffee a day, where are they going to wash their cup out? So we came across that problem and thought, well, there's an ability to treat the cup like a library borrowing card, where they don't have to pay for it up front. They can get their coffee and they just have to return it, and they have a month to return it. So that was an initiative just brought around, and I believe it was University of Queensland that first rolled that one out very successfully. and so we took some learnings, and it's a great thing about universities is you can share knowledge. And for the composting, we'd spoken to lots of locations and having experience that there's always barriers for moving it off site. The cost of transport of organics, because it's heavy, makes it a costly process. But at University of Sydney, they're beautiful grounds, and they were bringing compost in, and it didn't make sense that we're sending off organics, yet we're bringing compost in. Why not put a composter on site? But being a city site, you can't do that as an open pile compost. It takes too long. So we wanted to supercharge it using a system that could have an aerobic composting process, but it'd be super fast. So within 14 days, it comes out. It just needs a bit of time to cool down. It gets pasteurised in that time. So I was like, well, this should work. And ANU had a previous version of the hot rot many years earlier. So we knew it worked on a university site. And I think Gold Coast University have a different version, which wasn't being made anymore. So it was like, let's give it a go. And we linked it to the research and education. So we had students linking their thesis work in 2022 to the outputs. And there was also some research that was going to be linked to it. So it was great to incorporate it into the circular economy thinking as part of the engineering degrees.
I have to say the composter initiative is one of its kind, because I've never heard before university having implemented a digester really on campus. And I guess it also implemented really well on your sustainability strategy, where you are actually you're not working there anymore, but University of Sydney actually achieved the first ranking in the latest sustainability ranking of universities for Australia. So that's really impressive. I guess what has been the challenge of that digester, and have you been able to measure the impact of that initiative as of like before you left?
Yeah, definitely. We were weighing everything that went in because it was funded partly or mostly by the Environmental Trust, New South Wales Environmental Trust and EPA. We were successful with a grant to help us with the infrastructure. And we had a scale and we were weighing all the bins before they were loaded in. So we knew what garden waste was going in, what compostable food waste was going in. And in the first few months of it being implemented, we avoided 2 tonnes of food waste going to landfill because we didn't have a separate organic stream prior to this coming in. There was additional weight going in with organic, the garden material that used to go off for composting at another site, but at least it didn't need any, there were no emissions with any trucks going off. So yeah, we were getting a really good response from it. The only spanner in the works was when the EPA, New South Wales EPA, decided that no compostable packaging could get processed because we needed a mix of carbon. We already had a whole good supply of wood chip to help keep it aerated, but the theory was that in the food waste you don't want to separate the packaging, and we were at the union had already changed over to BioPack or compostable packaging. We had a sorting table to make sure we could sort what material went in to make sure that if it was a non-compostable packaging it wouldn't end up in the machine to quality control what goes in. But then we could only put the food waste in. Luckily, the machine still works perfectly well just with food waste. And there's a limit, unlimited supply of food waste across the campus because we knew that the machine was never going to be able to cope. It could take up to 500 kilograms of food wasted wood chip a day, and it needs the material from food waste to get it up to temperature to help the microbes to feed off the high energy component. And yeah, so we were starting to get, 100 to 150 kilograms of food waste starting to go through when I departed, and other team members were continuing to roll it out. COVID did delay the project. We started off in 2019 being awarded, and then there were delays, shipping delays, manufacturing delays. We had everything on site mid-2021, and then we went into lockdown in New South Wales and Sydney. And then that delayed, it delayed us starting the machine up because it was no good if I didn't have people who could operate the machine on site. We weren't sure how it was going to when our cafes closed on site. So when we originally put the grant in, I didn't expect a pandemic within a year to cause problems with the rollout. But it's starting to be rolled out, and it was the students and the staff that was, especially when we took people down, we quite often ran tours, and I understand it's continued, that people that they've continued to run tours, being on site, you're able to see it. And Water of Waste pointed out the issues with not knowing where your material goes. When it goes in a bin, people, out of sight, out of mind. But it seems that we get reasonably good material because we take people down there, show them where it goes, explain to the cleaners why it's important to keep the bins clean and the material clean, and yeah, the message seemed to be getting through because we had pretty clean stock coming through to the biodigester and didn't need to require that much sorting. But we did have the sorting table for staff and student areas. The cafes were reasonably good and trained their staff. But yeah, there were a couple of challenges.
That's really interesting. So what is happening right now with your compostable packaging on site?
All compostable packaging has to unfortunately go to landfill. It cannot go into a compostable stream. I know that no composting company will actually take your compostable packaging anymore because they won't meet the requirements, and otherwise they'll end up having compost at the other end that they can't put to land, and would have to be tipped anyway, so it's not worth processing.
So that's a massive issue right now in New South Wales for anyone that supplies commercially compostable packaging.
It is a huge issue because yeah, companies and cafes have been a little bit concerned. They've all shifted to, with the single-use plastic ban, they've shifted to compostable packaging. It's more expensive, and they thought, well, we can do the right thing by then composting it. And so we were all set up and ready to go, and I know a lot of other locations and shopping centres were ready to go, and then we're working through with the EPA, and they said, no, you can't put it in because of the risks of these forever chemicals, the PFASs. And they, so it now needs to go to landfill, and you need to make sure that you keep it clean and out. The EPA doesn't not believe there's much value, nutritional value that comes from these compostable containers. There's always food residue, but unfortunately it can't get recycled. It still has to go to landfill, and composting does require a carbon component. So there is value in the carbon through a composting process when you're balancing the nitrogen and the carbon.
It's very interesting, Nicole. What about you, Christine? Tell us a little bit about how your initiative have been initiated.
Yeah, well, the idea really came from our waste audits, which happen annually. Our waste contractor goes through a whole lot of bins and audits what's in them. And we discovered that about 25% of all waste at UQ could go in the organic stream. Vast proportion of that is probably your paper towel waste, but also food waste, which is heavy. So that's where the idea came from. It's now a commitment in our sustainability strategy that 100% of our organic waste is diverted from landfill by 2025. So yeah, that's where the idea came from. Since implementing those bins, as I said, we started back in was probably the end of 2019, actually. We were able to continue with the implementation throughout COVID when people were on campus. And probably beginning of this year, we'd fully implemented all the bins, and we're now seeing about 20% of UQ's waste is being diverted to the organics waste stream. So it's having a pretty big impact. So challenges, probably our big challenge, well, number of challenges. The cost of the compostable liners has been a bit of an issue. So with organic waste, it can't sit around for, food waste can't sit for more than a day. So in our kitchens, we had to basically have 2 bins for organics, one for food scraps, which is the little caddy that we put in compostable liner in. And then the other bin is for paper towel waste and compostable packaging, and it doesn't have a liner because we have the 60-litre bins, and a liner, compostable liner in that is 80 cents. And when you're talking about 600 kitchens throughout UQ, if you're having to change the liner every day, it ends up being a massive cost. So we got around that by having the little caddy for food scraps, but it's just confusing. No matter how much signage you put around, people are just confused. Why have we got 2 bins? Why? So that's one of the challenges. Bit difficult to get around that though with the cost of the compostable liners. Fruit flies are a bit of an issue. Some of the offices have wanted their compost caddies removed because of fruit flies. Only a couple in the whole university though, so it hasn't been too big a issue. Probably our number one issue though is just getting accurate waste data from our contractor. We at the moment just get default weights per bin lift, so we're really not getting accurate data. We have just signed a new waste contract with Veolia though, and they have promised us that their new trucks will have weighing devices on them, so we'll start to get accurate data for our waste. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that, like we're reporting our 20% diversion, whatever. Again, that's just based on these default figures. So hopefully when we get the actual waste data, it goes in our favour, but it very well may not.
In terms of, so food waste is a fascinating project, and I definitely believe, and actually at Responsible Cafe, we believe that reducing food waste, diverting food waste is one of the key issues for most universities in Australia. And in terms of reusables, which obviously is the core and the backbone of what we are trying to implement with Responsible Cafes. So I know, Nicole, you've mentioned about green caffeine that you've experienced in the past. I was wondering, is there any other initiative that you are implementing around reusables on campus?
Reusables have been a little bit tricky over the COVID period. Before COVID, there was a really big push for keep cups, reusables, and we're working down that path. but during the COVID period, a lot of the cafes stopped using the accepting keep cups, and I know I changed my habits of which cafes I used to go to based on if they would accept the keep cup or not. And so I know that there's some instances of a cafe in the city of Sydney that won't pour directly into a keep cup and uses a disposable cup and then pours that material into the keep cup, defeating the purpose of bringing a keep cup. So there's still a lot of education required around using reusables and taking it in and not using a single use to then load into the reusable, because that defeats the purpose. We are working on strategies for moving forward and seeing what we can do and removing waste from this and eliminating waste, so you're not creating in the first place. But yeah, the green caffeine cups is a really good example of a circular economy in action, because the cups are actually produced from post-consumer waste plastic. So it's not a virgin plastic that they actually use to create the cups, and then they have a life cycle, and at the end, if they're broken, they'll actually be taken back for recycling at the end of their life cycle after hopefully many, many uses. So that's been a really good example of circular economy and using another waste stream to create a reusable product.
How about you, Christine? What initiative have you implemented on campus around reusables?
So we introduced a program called UQ Unwrapped about 5 years ago, it probably was now, and it sounds like it's very similar to Responsible Cafes. Basically, it was based off the plastic-free Noosa model with Boomerang Alliance. So we worked with food outlets and catering providers on campus to engage with them to move away from single-use plastic items to reusable or compostable where reusable wasn't an option. I should just say that this all began because there was a student petition wanting to reduce single-use plastics on campus, and it ended up getting about 6,000 people signing it, students signing it. So we knew that we had to do something. So we introduced this program, worked with the cafes. Basically, we had 5 targeted single-use plastic items, which was, your coffee cups, takeaway containers, foodware, plastic straws. I think, and a few of those items now, the Queensland government's helped out with that. But basically, if the cafes eliminated all those items, they became champions. If they eliminated some of them, they became a member of UQ Unwrapped. And currently we have, of all the outlets on campus, 18 champions, 10 members, and two of the outlets that haven't joined up, and they're really the big franchises that have difficulty, committing to these things. But so it's been really pretty successful. And a lot of it honestly happened without too much of our input. I think there's just a movement towards moving away from those single-use plastic items. Students are putting pressure on these food outlets. As far as other reusables, we've also introduced green caffeine, and as of a couple of months ago, it has prevented 27,000 single-use plastic cups being disposed in landfill here at UQ. COVID had a massive impact on that, and a massive impact on our BYO, because Queensland government actually banned BYO for a good part of a year up here in Queensland. So it just set everything back. And probably, green caffeine before COVID, we had every cafe on campus offering green caffeine cups. Now we're sort of down to about 10 cafes because, just from that COVID and people not using BYO, and it was a bit of a shame. All our cafes...
The initiative dropped out a little bit due to COVID.
Yes, cafes offering green caffeine. A number of the cafes didn't want to offer it anymore because of concerns about the sanitation of the cups, if they're having to then wash those cups. So it's a shame. All our cafes offer a discount for BYO, and actually the union's gone the other way, and it basically you have to pay more I think it's
So
30
maybe-
cents more if you use, if you don't bring BYO or use green caffeine. Just in terms of not so much reusables, but reuse, we have a UQ, not UQ Unwrapped, Warp It, where we reuse furniture and equipment and what have you. It's a portal that staff can log into, so it allows for reuse of all those items here at the university. And it's just a really user-friendly way to increase the reuse on our campuses. We also have a repair cafe that is a lot of fun, and the student club manage that. They repair items. It's a really good community feel, that one, and that's about 3 times a semester they run a repair cafe, and people can bring in items that need fixing and learn the skills of repairing. And we have a reuse recycling station on our main campuses, and within that, it's not just recycling. We've got we collect items there that can be reused, like the glasses, reading glasses that go to the Lions Club and then get sent overseas. We collect stationery that the student group then give away to students at O Week. And there's backpacks. They're collecting backpacks at the moment for a charity. So that's reuse at UQ.
That's
obviously
really
obviously reuse has really got to be the priority. Yeah,
of course, and that's the logical pathway towards reducing, reusing, or recycling. Definitely inspiring actions and initiatives that you both have implemented or been a part of on those campus. I guess it's also very inspiring for the audience today listening to that conference. I just wanted to open, maybe, is there a few questions from the audience to Nicole or Christine or Responsible Cafes that we could answer?
Well, we're waiting for some questions to come through. We've at Macquarie University, as I've just learnt, they're reusing they're collecting hearing aids through the Hearing Hub, cleaning them, refurbishing them, and then donating them to people who can't afford hearing aids to make sure that everyone has access to hearing ability. So I never realised that it was something that you could refurbish and donate. So that's a great initiative. And like Christine at UQ, at Macquarie, for the last 12 years, we've run a furniture reuse store where furniture that's been moved, wasn't required in one building, has been rehomed in other buildings, and over 10,000 pieces of furniture over the last 12 years have been rehomed through that process rather than buying new and replacing. So that was just an internal program that we've run. So that's had a huge impact over the last 12 years.
Is it something that has been run internally, or have you been using
Yes.
an external company to organize it?
At Macquarie University, it was an initiative started by staff who are still here, and it continues to be run by them, and they manage the furniture that comes in, the database, and if they've got too much furniture, they do staff and student sales, and it's located on site. People go down and have a bit of a look. It's in a central location underneath the building on site, and yeah, it's been very successful, and it saved a lot of furniture. It was started before people talked about this, reuse, and that's been a more recent thing. So it's been really good to sort of see that it started so early on. I was doing the numbers. I was like, hang on, that was 12 years ago.
I guess there is a question that I haven't asked, but about this specific project, because you've both have implemented initiative around furnitures. How big is furniture waste within university campus?
It is huge.
It's huge, yeah. I mean, UQ's got 6,000 staff, and there's a lot of refurbishment of buildings and fit outs, and there's a massive amount of furniture. We give what can't be reused on campus, and Nicole, they probably do that, Macquarie, to charities, although having said that, charities aren't that keen on receiving this sort of furniture anymore because it's bulky and it fills up the stall. But we also have partnerships with schools, TAFE colleges, to try to offload that, because it's nothing worse than seeing good furniture go into a landfill skip. But I'd like to see our furniture, which sounds like that's what's happening at Macquarie, being sold on at discounted rates. That just seems like it makes sense to me. But yeah, I've got to convince the upper echelon here at UQ to let me do that. But that seems like a very good solution.
Yeah, it was sort of like almost a gold coin donation from what I've been told here at Macquarie. So it was very, very cheap rates, and it was very successful around COVID, where people were working from home and wanting desks and chairs. And so there's always a demand for chairs to go. So they don't last long, and there's usually a waiting list for chairs. But part of the program has been linking in with finance. And before people are allowed to buy new furniture, they're actually asked to check out the furniture reuse store and check that we don't actually have it in stock first. So closing that loop, so people can't just go out and buy new furniture first. They've got to check that it doesn't exist in the furniture store before they can then go and purchase it. So it's been a really good program that they've set up here, and it's been very successful, and it's saved a lot of items of furniture.
That's really good. That's very inspiring, I guess, for like initiatives that can be implemented on university campus. There's many things that can be implemented and lots of processes that can happen to drive university being more circular and implementing those circular economy pathways, I would say. Thank you very much for both of you to be here today, to share your experience, to share your initiatives and how they have positively impacted the workplace within universities. I guess if there is no questions from the audience, I guess we are almost out of time. So I would like to thank the audience. Thanks to Manon, who've been presenting with me today. Thanks to Nicole and Christine. And thanks to Timothy, who has been helping us setting up that conference. Thank you to the audience as well. Hope you have a lovely evening, and reach out to the speakers or to Responsible Cafe if you want to learn more.